get me going, and then go look at your prints. Figure out where you're at. But a 90's going to need to be a piece of pipe somewhere. And it's like, well, yeah, if we're building the whole thing, I need 90s. I need flanges. I'm going to need all sorts of stuff that's just on a piece of pipe. Yeah, you're right. Holy cow. So that taught me how to stay ahead. We went through and tagged some up and turned him loose.
Tradesmen built America. Not policymakers or desk jockeys, but hardworking, blue-collared men and women. Join me, Roger Wakefield, on conversations with some of the nation's most successful skilled laborers. This is the Trade Talks. Those of y'all out there that don't know, this is Squirt. Squirt is my son. So I call him Randy. He goes by Henry now. But, well, Randy, first of all, you introduce yourself to everybody.
I'm Henry Wakefield, 20-year pipe fitter in the union. That's the trade that I chose to go through and enjoyed it, loved it.
So when you graduated high school, you came to me and said, look, I want a job. You were fixing to be a parent. Don't even know that Randy was born yet.
Nope, not yet.
Okay. Came to me and said, Dad, look, you're in the union. You do well. I want to come to work in there. And I said, look, go out and get a job first. You're going to mess up. You're going to be late. You're going to get fired. You're going to leave early. You're going to skip all things that I did. So I know. And I've seen other apprentices do it. And I told you, go mess up before you come and get a job, because this isn't just a job. This is a career. This is a profession.
Yep.
Was that good advice at the time?
It was. They were real surprised on most jobs that I went and talked to people, and I didn't call it a job. I called it a career. And they're like, whoa, wait, coming out of this young kid's mouth. But that's what you said. You said, look, call it a career. You're going to blow their minds.
So to jump to the very end, has it been a good career?
It has. Amazing. Loved it all the way through. Stepped into just a world of fun now and get to have a good time and still use some things that I learned doing my craft.
Absolutely. So, right about now, I talk to people about how they got into the trades. So I know how you got in. But why'd you get into the trades?
Man, the main reason, so, I had a kid young, so I had to provide, I'm man of the house.
Two mouths to feed other than yours.
That's right. A couple other mouths to feed. So I had to provide, but I also had to gain knowledge, and I knew that. And you kind of told me about the union and how that worked. And I'm like, well, look, I can go out, I can earn money and go to school and still be able to provide and keep moving ahead and getting. Best part was I knew what the raises were going to kind of be. Some fluctuated a little bit, but most were laid out. So it was like, look, this is going to put me on a road that I need to be.
How much money did you make when you first got, not in the union? How much money did you make on your first job, machine shop?
I probably started out maybe $7 an hour back then.
Okay.
Maybe $7.50.
Okay. Your first union job when you started as an apprentice, and that was 2 years later?
Yeah, probably two and a half. I started out at 11.15. 11.15. It's first year apprentice.
So my first apprentice job, I think I made $4.75 an hour. The plumber that took me down to the office to apply for the job, whenever we pulled up, I said, look, what do I need to know? He said, ask for $4.25 an hour. Don't ask for any more. And I walked in, and for some reason, when they said, how much do you want? I said, $4.75 an hour. I said, okay, we'll see you Monday. I said, thank you very much. Yeah. So, the union's a little different. They tell you, here's what you started
Oh,
at.
yes.
Here's how often you get raises. Here's how often that. And we'll talk more about the union in a little bit. But you've got a family full of plumbers.
I do.
And, when me and you talked about it, you were getting in plumbing.
In your solid mind, I was.
Well, I got you in the union to get you in plumbing. It was my thought. But now we're in a combi local. So it's plumbers and pipe fitters and welders. And pipe fitters and welders kind of go in the same group.
Yep. they do.
After your first year, you talked to the school and said, look, I don't want to be in the plumber class. I want to move over to the pipe fitter class. Why'd you choose that?
Well, so like one of my favorite things about plumbing and all my learning growing up with all my plumbing family was using a torch. You know, I enjoy fire. I like it. I don't know.
I did too when I was young.
I enjoy it. So in the pipe fitting world, you get to use a cutting torch, cutting different metals, things like that. And with the machine shop background, I enjoyed the metal work. So it led me more into pipe fitting. And then I always thought cranes were cool, man. So when you run pipe that's big enough that you have to have a crane to put it up, well, guess what? That's what I wanted to be around.
I remember, and me being a superintendent, I've worked with a lot of pipe fitters, welders, plumbers, electricians, and HVAC techs. And I remember one time I was working on the central plant down in Love Field, and we had built this 90 spool piece. I think it was 30-inch pipe, maybe 24. And we had built this saddle that we could put pieces of pipe in, strap it, lift this saddle up with a SkyTrack, lift a pipe up. So almost like a crane that sits on 4 wheels, a lift. But we had built this 90 piece and we were trying to figure out how do we get this up here and how do we do this? And I said, you know what? Put that thing in the saddle. So we put that thing in the saddle, strapped it down, and literally put the 90 where it was setting in the middle of the saddle, pipes coming out both ways. So I could get the SkyTrack right in the middle of it. And I'm like, now everybody get out of the way. And literally I get that SkyTrack in, I'm maneuver it around, I lift it up, I get it up here and, you know, I'm turning my wheels, I'm tilting to the left, tilting to the right, bumping back and forward and all this. And kid you not, put this 90-degree piece that probably had a 10-foot and 12-foot piece on each end in position. And I remember Mike Clark walked up to me and looked at me and says, how did you even see that? I said, dude, I have no idea, but hurry up and tack it. It's almost the end of the day. We need to get hangers on it. It doesn't need to go anywhere. And, you know, thinking outside the box.
Yes.
You've got to be able to do that as a pipe fitter, especially.
Big time. Rigging I love it because you have to look from outside of the box to figure some things out.
Well, of course, I've been to the instructor training program in Ann Arbor, and I've been there 1, 2, 3 or 4 times. Part the time while I was an instructor in union, part of the times as director of operations over major construction in a union contractor's position. The rigging course in Ann Arbor at the UA instructors training program is the one they're like, dude, look, you better have that book memorized frontwards and backwards before you walk in. I mean, literally, they teach you to rig stuff, fly it into a hole that it won't fit in, twist it, turn it, line it up, set it, and everything has to go perfect.
Yep.
That would be I would love that, and I think you would, just because of, you know, look, this is a puzzle.
Yes.
And you're going to tell me this 10-pound bag of potatoes can go in this 5-pound sack perfectly? Show me. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I think that would be fun. How'd you find your first job in the trades at the machine shop?
At the machine shop, it was close to school. It was close to home. And then you kind of knew the family and introduced me some. So I was interested in it. I'm like, man, that's neat. You take raw metal and turn it into a usable piece for something.
You bet.
And most of our parts we built were for Halliburton. So it kept us busy, and it was just a neat place to learn. And then I learned under a bunch of old men.
I like that. Pipe fitting is different than plumbing. So I don't remember. Did you get fired from the machine shop eventually, or did you go? No, you did something else, or it was
I ended up leaving. I started working at Citywide Mechanical because there wasn't an opening yet in the union. It was kind of a list of people to get in. So I went and worked at Citywide Mechanical for a while. Started learning tilt wall buildings, things like that. did some nursing homes, just different things. And all that was plumbing mainly that I worked with there.
And that's neat because Citywide was my first plumbing job. I worked for Citywide Plumbing. We were doing a add-on remodel to the Wells Fargo down in Lockwood, Lakewood, wherever it is, Lakewood Plaza. And it's funny because when we go to Teeter's Supply, it's right across the street. So I still get to see it. And actually, it's funny. I had a doctor's appointment probably a year and a half ago. And it's one of those online doctors. It's a great service, but just pulled up and literally the doctor came out and says, hey, look, since you're here, I'm going to go ahead and give you a swab. He says, you've got COVID. I'm like, you're joking. That really doesn't exist, does it? So anyway, it's funny because I had gone in their office before and it's in the add-on that we did. And I'm like, okay, this is really, really cool. So it was fun. What did you learn as an apprentice that, people right now that are either already apprentices or they're thinking about getting into the trades? What did you learn as an apprentice that just really helped you do well?
So honestly, through my apprenticeship, one of the best things that I learned was from each and every journeyman, I would learn some good ways, some bad ways, and some decent ways,
right?
Because everybody's does things a little different. So you learn different ways to think about things. Now, some aren't quite as easy and simple as others, but occasionally you'll run into a situation where that difficult way can help you out. So it's good to learn all these different aspects of how to do the same thing because, as we know, most everybody thinks about it just a little different, installs just a little different, but it all turns out to operational products.
I like that. Pipe fitting is a big pipe. Plumbing's a little bitty, sometimes it's embarrassing. It's like, well, I'm running 300 feet of half-inch pipes a day. It's like, dude, whatever. Working with big pipe, being a pipe fitter, and working with welders is, everybody in construction says whoever owns the welders owns the work because there's a lot of big pipe goes in a building. A lot of people don't even know that. But you've got to have great welders. And you got really good as a pipe fitter. And you got to where you could keep two welders with their hood down. And first of all, what's it mean to keep a welder with his hood down?
For me, in my mind, it's you keep that welder's hood down. When it comes up, because he's finishing a weld, you're already set up and ready to go, hey, come on over here, tack it, let's go. And you keep his hood down.
So that keeps him busy.
That keeps him busy.
Burning rod.
And most welders, that's keeping them happy.
You bet.
Because they just want to come in and weld all day long.
Now, you learned to weld.
I did.
Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed learning how to do it, yes. Now, I don't prefer to weld pipe. I prefer to fit, do the cutting, the prepping, perfect lineups. I got really good at my craft.
So perfect lineups, because there's going to be a lot of people listening don't even know what pipe fitters do. Explain a perfect lineup.
So a perfect lineup is whenever you take a fitting and a piece of pipe. My preferences are about 24-inch pipe. You make the IDs of each pipe perfectly aligned with each other. This is typically on data centers and stuff like that where we have to pass 100% X-ray weld all the time. So it's our job, my job as the fitter, to give that welder the perfect lineup of these two pipes to actually make the proper weld so that it's lined up and it doesn't create any restrictions in the flow of the water on the insides.
Right. You want laminar flow, smooth flow, not turbulent.
Yes.
Perfectly. Makes sense. You got to the point where you could keep two welders busy.
I did.
How hard is that to do?
Man, I can remember I had an apprentice welder that had been working with me for a while. You know, he knew how I was, that I was good, you know, and had a foreman come up one day. He's like, "Oh, hey, I got another welder that's coming for you tomorrow. You know, they say all you fitters can keep welders busy. Da, 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 da." Yeah, okay, no problem. He's like, "Oh, okay." He takes off. I said, my apprentice looks at me. He goes, "Dude, how are we going to do that? Like, what are you going to do?" I said, "What? You get ready to start tacking all day." "What do you mean?" I said, "We're going to go through and we're going to start tacking this floor up, except for where it makes sense to make the welds." I said, "Get a bunch ready." "Holy cow. You're going to have that welder busy." I said, "His hood's going to be down all day. Yours will be most of the day, but you're going to help me get all these pieces lined out in the head, and we're going to get in front of all this. When we get to the end, you can start welding."
Now, you taught me a cool trick, and it was something that I'd never heard before, because I used to be a superintendent over fitters, welders, electricians, HVAC techs, plumbers, the whole gamut. But fitters and welders were some that are always hard to keep busy. But you taught me a trick, because, you know, we've talked about this before. If you're on a job today and a welder comes up and you've got a new welder and you've got nothing but fittings and pipe laying there, how do you get him busy right then?
So one of my old mentors, Bubba Baker, taught me one time. We got thrown into this basement and I was just still an apprentice. So they're like, "Yep, here you go. Y'all started installing. Pile of pipe, pile of fittings, and a stack of drawings." And I'm like, "Okay, hold on. You're going to have to give me a minute," you know? And he started laughing. He said, "Well, why don't you get me started on something?" But like, hold on, I've got it. I don't even know where we're at yet. Well, you know, a 90's got to go on a piece of pipe. And I was just like, "Well, yeah.
Keep your welder busy.
Hold on." And he's like, "Get me going, and then go look at your prints. Figure out where you're at. But you know, a 90's going to need to be a piece of pipe somewhere."
You bet.
And it's like, well, yeah, if we're building the whole thing, I need 90s. I need flanges. I'm going to need all sorts of stuff that's just on a piece of pipe. Yeah, you're right. Holy cow. So that taught me how to stay ahead. We went through and tagged some up and turned him loose.
And I learned that from Michael Burgess.
Yeah.
Almost the same type deal. Look at your drawings. You were talking pipe and 90s. I used to look at Texas Instruments at a DI water system or heating water, process water, whatever it is. And, you know, go to your heat exchanger or something. You need a flange. How many of those come straight off onto a piece of pipe? How many come off straight onto a 90? Hey, I need this flange on this 90. I need a spool piece on this flange. I need this. Same type deal. And that's neat, because now you're like, look, I can keep you busy all day just doing these 3 or 4 welds.
Little things.
And that gets you started. Now I have time to breathe. I have time to look. I have time to start figuring dimensions and cuts and things like that. And it's funny. And, you know, I heard a story. Welders are prima donnas. I know. So I heard a story one time, and I've always thought this was good. It's like a plumber, a pipe fitter, and a welder are walking down the street. Excuse me. A plumber, a pipe fitter, and welder dog are all 3 puppies walking down the street. And they walk past this fence, and they happen to look over, and there's a big, juicy bone right there in the yard. And they're like, "Man, there's a fence between us. How are we going to get to that?" The plumber says, "You know what? We're going to dig a hole down, and we're going to tunnel over, and we're going to come up right under it. And we're going to get that bone." Everybody kind of looks. Pipe fitter says, No. We're going to build a gantry. We're going to go up, and we're going to slide across, and we're going to come down the other side, and we're going to get that bone. Welder says, No. We're going to sit here and cry about it till somebody gets that bone for us. That's pretty much what it's like working with a welder.
That is pretty close.
It is, really. I mean, it really is. Plumbers are like, "Look, let's just go to work. Let's do it." Fitters are like, "Look, let's build something. We'll make it happen." Welders are like, "We'll just lay here and cry about it till somebody does it all for us."
That's right.
So becoming becoming a great fitter, tradesperson? Let's say fitter, so you relate really quick. But whether you're a plumber, an electrician, a fitter, a welder, whatever it is, why do you want to become the very best?
Becoming the best is going to keep you on the job. No company wants to get rid of the guy that wants to be the best on the job, even if he's not the best yet, to show that you're trying, headed towards becoming the best. They don't want to get rid of you.
Sometimes just that mental attitude is enough to separate you from everybody else.
Definitely.
And the bad thing is, and I talk about this a lot, right now becoming the best on the job is not very hard to do because nobody's trying to.
Yep.
And when I say nobody, I know some of y'all are, but most people are like, look, I'm showing up every day. They're giving me a check. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
They're treating it more like a job.
Mm-hmm. Not a career, not a profession.
That's it.
It's a big deal. What made you want to be the best?
I wanted to be the best. Well, a lot because of how I was brought up. Is
your dad's a ass.
Well, he is, but it's okay. Some of that shows through me for sure. I can be whenever I want to, but I want to be the best for me. It sets me apart from everybody else, but it's all for me and myself. It's the one thing that is truly in my control. And if I strive to be the best, I never lose my job. I get to pick whenever the flushes come up and you get that overnight extra pay and stuff. Hey guys, yeah, I'm going to do the nighttime flush. Oh yeah, you are. Because they knew I could handle anything that happened. It wasn't an issue.
Union pay is really good.
Union pay is yes.
Union time and a half is wonderful.
Is great.
Union overnight pay, Sunday pay, that double time or even holiday pay, triple time. That's pretty good money.
It's pretty large checks that you can earn.
I used to have a guy that worked for me. We called him Giggles. He used to say, look, I like making them 2 comma checks. Like 2 comma checks. He said, yeah, there's a 2 and then a comma and then the rest of the check.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, I've seen those a few times. $2,000 a week carry home ain't bad.
No, it's not. And that's at home. That's not even traveling.
Yeah.
Think of some of those that you can hit on the road. It's even more.
I got a guy. Okay. You've traveled for a little bit, not a lot.
A little bit.
There's somebody that I got into the union, as a welder, came really, really good. And he did a lot of traveling and he'd go out of town for 4 or 5 months and make $3, $4, $5, $6 a week. How often do you see that?
Me personally, not much. Now I do know some pipeline welders that have tried to talk me into going because they love working for me. They're like, dude, you would be one of the best road bosses ever.
I like that, working for you.
They do.
As a fitter, you do. You're the boss of that crew. You make it happen.
And but I know so many tricks now. Because I listen to all the old men talk and all these little tricks. You put enough of those in your pocket and guess what? You've got a bag of tricks at that point.
I like that.
So it's good, but man, I know guys that make, 4 comma checks, no problem every week because they're out on the road. They have their rigs. They work done.
What does it take to be the very best?
To be the very best, it truly comes down to 8 hours work for 8 hours pay. You give them everything solid. You push to do everything the best that you've learned. And in that, with all the knowledge that you gain, you've got to try to use the best all the time. Whatever's the quickest, but still keeps it right and true.
You said the best you've learned. How's the education in the union?
Education's good. Their school, you learn quite a bit there. Most everything you do learn on the job from your journeyman. Through my apprenticeship, I feel like I asked my journeyman more questions. things I was learning in school, I'd kind of ask them what they knew about it, things like that, just to help broaden the knowledge that I was gaining on each different subject. And most of them would help. You'd have a couple guys that didn't really want to. You get those stubborn ones occasionally, but
why don't they want to teach?
Because if you're becoming the best guy on the job, you're going to take theirs.
I like that. I mean, I don't like that they do it, but I like that answer. You know, me, I was always the opposite. I used to remember when I got in the union, you know, I came in from open shop. I'd worked open shop for 17 years. And when I came into the union, literally, I was a rat. They didn't like me. But I knew that coming in. And I'm like, I need to outperform everybody on this job. And I made sure every time I was on the floor with another plumber, I worked circles around them. And maybe not complete circles, but you know what? I did more work. It looked better. I was more productive. Like you said, 8 hours work for 8 hours pay. What percentage of people in the trades do that?
I'm going to be nice and say 20%.
Oh, I was thinking 5.
I know. Yeah. And realistically, probably 10%.
That's why I go back to, it's not hard to be the very best.
It's not.
If you want to be the very best, you can be the very best.
You can.
But it's a mental mindset. And you've got to come and say, look, I want to do
it. It's like this apprentice asked me one day. We were working on a job doing a data center. I had the fastest welder on the job. We'd been working probably 712s for a couple months now. But he just kind of looked over at me one day and he's just like, I don't get it. And I was like, what? And he goes, you're like a machine. You'd never stop. He's like, these other fitters. And I said, whoa, what are you doing, man? Like, you're going to compare me to everybody? Well, no, I know I shouldn't do that. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, they kick back and they're waiting on their welder. I said, yeah, but watch them. When that welder finally finishes, then they start prepping the next thing. I said, dude, the whole time that welder's welding, they could be prepping the next thing and have it ready to go, just like we do. It's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. Stay busy. That's a lot.
I had a journeyman get upset with me on a job because I carried, you know, the bag that you put inside of a 5-gallon bucket that holds you. It's called a tool caddy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It goes in a 5-gallon bucket. Mm-hmm. Helps me keep my stuff organized. Well, back then I worked out of a bucket. So I bought one of those tool caddies, put it in my bucket, had all my tools in it and all that. And we get a call from the union saying, hey, got a guy filing a complaint on you. I'm like, wait, what? I said, yeah, you're supplying your own tools. I said, I didn't supply any tools. I said, I got a tool sorter. It's just, it's like a bag that goes in a bucket that helps me separate my tools. I said, that's just for me to keep them separated. I said, look, we're not going to file charges on you. Not going to let that happen, but just letting you know. Well, then the guy gets upset and he takes it to the superintendent on the job, which is Tennessee Charlie Yates. And we're sitting there talking to Charlie and he says, look, you know, I don't like Roger being here. Don't like this, don't like this, don't like this. He's not the union way. He's not. And Charlie says, okay. He says, what else is he doing? He says, well, you know, he sits on a bucket. He's got a Walkman attached to the back of his hard hat, got headphones up under it where he plugs in and he's working with 4 or 5 apprentices. Back then you could, or guess you still can. And Charlie looked at him and said, well, how's his work? Guy kind of puts his head down. I says, man, his work's good. He said, he puts it in true plumb and square. We don't have leaks. We never have to go back. It's anchored. He said, can't complain about his work at all. Charlie said, well, when you can put in as much work as he does, as good as he does, then come back and complain about the bucket. Or then you can sit on a bucket and listen to the radio too. Yeah. And, you know, we kind of laughed about it and we ended up coming out being good friends. He's a great guy. And, you know, we all do things different, but I knew when I was on the floor, I needed to work better than everybody else. I needed to put in more work. I needed to do it better. And I needed to outperform every other union journeyman, or try to, every day. Like you said, you don't always have to do it. You got to try to do it.
Yep.
You got to want to do it. And every time I got an apprentice, I would teach them how to do something so well they could not mess up. Whether it's anchors, whether it's laying it out, whether it's cutting, reaming, putting it together, whatever it is that we're doing, do it better than everybody else. And I teach them how to do it. It's like, okay, I want you to start on the other end. You lay it out. He's going to come down there and he's going to set the anchors. You're going to come down and put it on. And I'd have 4 or 5 apprentices, and man, we'd be rocking. Once I got them going, pull out my bucket, flip it over, have my tool bucket next to me, turn on some tunes, and here I go. And I'm running the water in the wall and soldering it and all that. So it's pretty funny, but if you learn, and I like that 8 hours for 8 hours, and
that's it.
I've heard it before. I don't see a lot of it happening.
Yep.
But if you learn, especially as a fitter, it takes a while to put together a joint. You said earlier you like 24 inch pipe?
24 inch.
How long does it take to put together a 90 and a piece, a spool piece, put it together, line it up, tack it, get it ready for the welder to weld? How long does that take?
Bare minimum a half hour. I mean, because you've got to use a forklift typically, or roustabout or something, to pick up your 90, to pick up your piece, get it all in jacks, get everything lined up and ready. Then you've got to make sure your high-low's right, to make sure that the fitting's true, the pipe's true.
True plumb and square.
They actually will line up, so you don't have a lot of misalignment in there. So bare minimum 30 minutes. Some guys out there, it could take them an hour or 2 hours. I mean,
Or 2 hours. I was thinking an hour.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking an hour, and I'm giving time to get it, cut it, match it up, whole 9 yards. So I'm thinking an hour. How long is it going to take that welder to weld 24 inches?
So typically, if you have the fastest welder on the job, maybe 4 hours.
Okay.
Some welders, it could take 8 hours.
6 inches an hour?
It could take longer. Yes, okay. It varies. But whenever you've got the fastest welder on the job, I think we typically get 3 24-inch welds done and installed in a 12-hour night.
Okay. So an hour to fit it, 4 hours to weld it. So while he's welding it, you could actually fit up 4 more pieces, have them ready to go.
Yep.
It's kind of easy to do that for 2 welders if you stay busy.
That's right.
But if you slow down and take breaks and walk around the job and my welder's welding, we'll go check out the electricians, hang out with them for a while. They got a cool break room. But I see that.
It puts you behind real quick.
I see that more than I see the 8 hours work for 8 hours pay.
Yes.
Do you have any mentors that helped get you to where you wanted to be?
So probably Joe Kelly, kind of a prima donna. He had more weld certs than
he wasn't kind
else.
of a prima. He was a prima donna, but he earned it.
He did.
There's not many that earn it. He earned it.
And here's why I say kind of a prima donna, because he taught me a lot.
No, love Joe Kelly.
And
phenomenal
how
person.
to do things right. He would take the time and be like, look, I'm not too good to teach you how to do this. Come here.
And when I say Joe was a prima donna, he really wasn't. Joe was the best welder, and he knew it.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
That's right.
It ain't bragging if you can do it.
That's it. Yes.
And
it's not trash talking if you can back it all up. No,
he
it's
was
just
phenomenal.
facts.
So I'm joking really when I call him a prima donna. He was just an amazing freaking welder.
Yep. And good, like smart as a whip. He taught me tons of things, saddles, things like that, things that some guys just don't even know how to do. They just want a template. But I can do it with a wraparound and some soapstone and a measuring tape. I'm good to go.
You bet. I got to see Robert Zomanick do that. I was on a job doing a central utility plant in Plano, and I was a journeyman plumber, and it was mainly a piping job. But as a journeyman on the job, their best welder was an apprentice. If they're bringing in an apprentice, they have to ask all the journeymen, do you want to work?
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, I'll come in. And I was relatively new in the union, so I was learning. But I remember going out there, and they said, well, you're going to work with him. You're going to fit for him. You're going to help him lay out. You're going to do this. Well, I didn't know how to fit. I didn't know how to cut pipe, any of that. But I can run a grinder. I can measure. I can lay out. I can do stuff like pipe is pipe.
Yep.
I got this. So I did. I worked with him that day. I think we had a 12-hour day. And I'm like you. I stayed busy. When he's got his hood down, and there's other things I can be working on. So I'm doing it. And I remember at the end of the day, he said, dude, you can fit for me any day. And it's like, it's just, I wanted to stay ahead. I didn't want him to say, look, are you not doing anything or what? So I did, man. I stayed on top of it. A lot of people these days don't do that.
No. And that's the key to being the best apprentice ever, is just be one step ahead of the work going on.
Mm-hmm. Now, how does being the best pay more?
Well, I mean, it's kind of said in the statement there, being the best does pay more, because you can ask for more. Because 8 hours work for 8 hours pay, well, you look at all the other guys, 8 hours
You're already
work,
working twice as much as everybody else.
Double.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And if you can put out the production and it's still great quality because you love what you do, then you can ask for more money. Always get it.
I'm lucky because I moved up to foreman, superintendent, director of operations. I mean, I had a good union career, but it was because I learned and I grew and learned new things and did other things. But I mean, scale is just where they start you at it. You can make, I know when I walked out, even before director of operations, my last superintendent job, I was making double scale, actually over double scale. I remember when scale was 25 an hour, I was making like 51.50, something like that. Scale's a great place to start.
It is.
But if you show up, you work, you do your job, you do things right, that's what it is. It's a starting point. Minimum wage. It's the minimum wage for a journeyman.
Minimum wage for a journeyman.
I like
the
that.
job.
Minimum wage. So what do you learn to make you more money?
Learn how to perfect everything you do. So like in my world, one of the big things that made a huge difference in how quick I was learning the right way to cut perfectly square pipe with bandsaw, torch, whatever the case is. The better that you can make that actual cut, the quicker everything preps.
The less time you're going to spend on a grinder.
Less time you're on a grinder, less time for everything. Like, and once I got so good, it was like, oh, that's what I need. Okay, here. Well, let me look at it from that aspect. And I started hitting it every single time. And even welders are going, holy cow. Like, you could almost just hit that with a hammer and I'm good to go. And I'm like, no, I get it. I know. But no, let me go ahead and give you a land. Let me prep it right, because let me just get it ready.
I love that. Did you do any kind of additional training? Because I recommend plumbers or people that want to move up into foreman, superintendent, stuff like that, learn construction management, learn management, leadership, personality styles, communication. There's a lot of things. Did you ever study anything outside of pipe fitting, anything like that?
Not a whole lot. Kind of whenever I started into superintendent role, they did some little training courses and classes, just video online type stuff. But it was good to hear that knowledge and be able to take some of that in and put it into use. Most of it was just hands-on, though. I feel like that's kind of how the field works for the most part. It's, here you go, sink or swim. Let's see how it goes. But when you get thrown into those positions and you came up asking questions and trying to actually put all the knowledge to use, you're going to do just fine, because it's out there. You can handle it.
Now, your last few years have not been out in the field.
They've not. So I was a superintendent, and then I came into the office, became an estimator. I wanted to know what it took to get a big job and what does that process look like. And within a couple of years, I became a senior estimator, because of my previous knowledge, being able to read PNIDs and blueprints and everything. And I understood what specifications were, and I've actually read some in my lifetime. They're like, oh, wait.
You understand this? Yeah.
You do know. Okay, good. No, this should be a really good fit. And it was. But that hamster wheel got kind of old after a while.
How long were you in front of a computer?
So I was in the office for 5 years, bidding jobs from a couple $1,000 to 35 million, I think was probably the largest one I did. And I did industrial, mechanical, large projects. Bid some plumbing too. So it was great because I knew all those worlds, with coming up, learning plumbing as a kid and learning all the rules and knowing the rules, and then being in the union, being the last fitter on the job most of the time. They'd have me help on plumbing sometimes too, because
keep you busy.
I knew plumbing, and they're just like, man, we don't want you to leave this job yet. Just in case,
you bet.
Just in case we need you out here for something over here. You want to do this? Sure. And then there were times I was running storm drains, and they're like, hold on. This is the straightest storm drain I have ever seen installed. And I'm like,
it's the only way I know how.
I'm a pipe fitter, bro.
Yeah.
It better be straight whenever I'm done.
How was the transition from out of the field into the office?
At first it was difficult.
What was difficult?
So the main difficult, like what truly moved me out of it, from the outside looking in, I thought learning how to do a job and landing a job was going to be a wonderful thing. And it was. My first job I sold was exciting. Then, the next morning I wake up, talk to the senior estimator I'd been learning from, I'm like, well, okay, like I sold this job. He goes, yeah, now you're thinking, what'd you mess up? I'm like, yeah, but then there's all this other stuff too. We got to do all this. And it didn't dawn on me that selling a job sometimes is a bad thing for an estimator, because if you've got 5 or 6 estimates that you're working on and juggling, and you've got all this time, okay, I got to do all these things to hit my bid dates. And then, oh, hey, you sold a job.
Yep. Now you got to do a handoff. You got to do a lot of stuff.
Take about a 4-hour timeout from everything you've got going. Print these drawings, print this, get everything ready to hand this job over.
But not just that. How long ago did you bid that job?
Oh, that's
because now you've got to get your mind right back into a job that you forgot about for 4 weeks.
Yes. And that's why I took great notes with every estimate I put together, to where I could quickly flip through and go, okay.
Now I remember.
But the way that my mind works, it can still track things from a while back. Once I start getting into that information, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I remember this job. This is the one where this happens, and this. Okay, yes, let's do this.
You get that first job, you're like, great, we got this job. Then you start thinking, wait, there were 10 other companies bidding it, and we had the lowest price.
Yep.
Like, oh great, we got this job. You got to start thinking, what did I miss? What did I do wrong that we beat 9 other companies for, 10 other companies, however many were bidding it? Because it's pretty cutthroat trying to get these big jobs. I mean, you're working for a multi-$100 million a year company.
Yes.
It takes 10, 20 jobs like that a year to keep it going.
That's right. That's right. And it takes a lot of work to get those jobs, but then, yeah, you get one and it's like, okay, hold on, wait. Are we sure we got everything? Did we check it, double check everything? Let's run through it
before we sign contracts,
just to verify that we are good. But then you just start looking through everything, and whenever you feel good, it's like, well, okay, yeah, no, this should be a good job, should be good go. And that first one turns out good, and you're like, okay, phew, I did it right. All right, good to know.
So what's your favorite job you ever worked on?
Honestly, I guess it'd probably be out at Texas Instruments. Back with first getting into pipe fitting, learned a lot of stainless tubing and orbital welding, and running the stainless lines out there is where I learned to look at this trade as it's true artwork, and you're just adding to this great painting that's in the world around us. And that's what made me learn plumb, level, square, make everything true, because when it's all done that way, it looks so great.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. So that's your favorite job in the field. What's the favorite one you ever bid? Was there one that it was fun because it was something totally different? Or are they kind of all the same?
No, I mean, they're kind of all the same. I do some different, unusual things. There was a really cool one I did once. I lost my bid. Somebody came in at half of my price.
And at that point, you're like, let them have it. They're going out of business soon.
I told my boss, I said, look, please call him, because it was an existing customer of ours before. I said, look, please call him, because they do not have everything in their bid. I assure you, because just getting this part fabricated that has to be fabricated from this company is half of what they bid. So there's no way that they've got all these other things that happen. But it was a oil jacketed piping. It's to where they run hot oil through this outer containment piping, and then you had a pipe on the inside of that to run from a tank out. Then you have hoses that distribute this hot oil from pipe to pipe from all these spools and things, and I'm like, boss, there's no way. You've got to let the customer know.
Right.
So he did. He tried for like 3 different times. He said, so they're going to end up getting it. I said, well, then yeah, that's their job. I think it was 8 months later, I'd asked him, a couple times about that job. He said, no. He said, yeah, I think they're in lawsuits over that job now. Yeah. I said, no, I'm sure. I said, I tried to tell him, well, they bid the prints. I said, yeah, but the outside piping is not shown on the actual drawings that sent. But with walking and talking the job with him, I knew exactly what he wanted. Okay, yeah, I'll bid what you want. No problem.
I like that. My coolest one was the Great Wolf Lodge. Indoor water park.
Yes.
290,000 square feet, 16, I think up to 20-inch Schedule 80 PVC. Man, it was just fun.
That job was fun.
And you came up and finished the mechanical rooms. I left and went, I think, back to the airport. But I remember bidding that job. We got a call from a supplier. I did. Because I was the big project superintendent. I helped bid work and look at work and all that, and then help do what we did.
Yep.
And I remember bringing this job in, and at first we're like, man, we can't bid this. It's like, guys, it's pipe. It's what we do. And they're like, yeah, but this is a water park. This is swimming pools. And it's like, guys, look, we can do this. And man, you've got that. Not just the external sell to the customer, you got to sell it inside.
Yes.
Your estimators have to believe in you.
Yes.
And I'm like, guys, look, we can do this. And we started looking at it and talking about it and doing this and doing this. Put everything together, took Newman Pools out to dinner, talked to them, had their, I think, president and senior constructor, senior superintendent, whatever, come in, talked to them. Come bid day, we found out when we got the job. And the vice president of Beard came back to me and says, well, now that we got that job, you're going to have to run it because nobody else can run this type job.
Yep.
But it was so much fun. I'm glad that I did. I learned how to use a total station, get out there, lay out points. There are so many cool things about it. And then when I was getting ready to leave, I'd already brought you out. Mm-hmm. You had just looked at the mechanical rooms. It's like, hey, this is going to be yours to finish up. Have fun. It's pretty cool stuff, though.
It was. That was a real fun job site.
It's neat to build a tower that has 8-inch pipe, I think, running up it so it can run water up to the slides up top. There's just so many cool things about that.
So many things. Yes.
And you still go out there often and take your
I take
kids.
The kiddos sometimes. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So somebody getting into the trades or somebody wanting to be the best tradesman right now. Number one, do you think this is a good time to get in the trades?
Oh, it's a great time. It's a great time because there's not a lot of people that want to work for a living. But once you actually go out and try to work for a living, you'll understand why so many people actually do it. gives you such a great sense of gratification putting stuff in with two hands.
I love about it. And, we always talk about how prideful it is to be in the trades. And, you drive down the road and like, hey, I built that building. You've probably heard it more from me than anybody else, but, I built that building, or, hey, I fixed that, or they've got a problem in there and I did this and I did that. So there's always cool stuff like that. But I remember there's a gas line going up the side of a terminal. And every time I drive through DFW Airport, which I try not to, I try to fly out of Love Field. But every time I drive through there, I'm always, as I get close to that building, I'm looking over like, where's my gas line at? Because I helped run that. Do you feel like that as a pipe fitter? Do you drive by buildings and just like?
Oh, yes. I tell the kids all the time, my kids, same thing. It's, I worked on that. Did these hospitals, hospitals are a great thing to do. Putting in steam systems for sterilizers is just one of the coolest feelings I feel like a pipe fitter can get, because you're helping them out.
And you talked about tubing bending earlier out at TI. You're literally walking into the union thinking, okay, Dad got me a job or career in plumbing.
Yes.
And you've done plumbing, but pipe fitting, tubing bending, there's so many different things that this can lead to, even working in the office, estimating.
Yes, that's it. And I just tried to specialize in everything a little bit and get really good at it and then go try something new. Like there was one time Bubba Baker, that welder that I was lining out, keep him busy. I lined him up, gave him 10 welds. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to go up because they're installing glass piping. And I just want to kind of get an idea of how that works and how they cut it and how they prep it." I said, "I'll be back in half an hour, I'm sure. But, oh yeah. I mean, you got all day if you need it.
Burning rod, go play." So
I disappeared 30, 45 minutes, went, learned, cut a couple pieces of pipe for the guys, learned how to use the little tools and stuff and how to roll a bead on the end. And okay, cool. That gives me a good idea of what it is. I just wanted to be able to understand it.
And it's funny. It goes back to Warren Buffett. He reads so many books, not because he wants to know about everything, but there's less out there that he knows nothing about.
Yeah.
I love that. That's pretty cool. You've done a lot of things through your career. Now you work on social media.
I do.
Darrell has asked you, so what did you think when your dad says, "Hey, I'm going to start doing YouTube"?
Yeah, he asked me that, and I'm just like, man, I thought he was crazy, but hey, all right, good deal, go for it. I mean, I knew it would end up being a good fit. It's turned out to be the perfect world for you.
Turned out to be amazing. But now you're involved with it, helping create content, helping build trainers, setups, rigs, whatever it is we need. Are you still loving your job?
Oh, I love my job. It's exciting. Never know what's in store for sure.
Minute to minute.
That can change. It can change. I can have a whole plan in my head, wake up and get here and toss the whole thing out instantly.
Yeah. And that used to frustrate you.
It did. It frustrated me for a while. Luckily I got a good buddy that told me, "Hey man, just fluid mind in the film world and you'll be okay." So I started entering with a fluid mind to go, look, what I have planned may not happen.
You bet.
It's okay. No big deal. Just keep on moving forward. We'll be fine.
And I see it the exact same way, because it's like, look, there's a lot that I need to get done. There's a lot on my plate, a lot I want to get done, but other stuff pops up. Other stuff comes in. It's like, got to get that done. It's a lot of fun though.
It is. It is.
And you get to see the feedback.
Yes.
You get to see the comments. You get to see walking into trade shows. You get to see how this is taken by everybody out there.
Yep.
Is that part pretty cool?
And that it's amazing. Like we went to Flow Expo. We were there all day. I don't know how many hundreds of people we talked to and stopped, took pictures and handed out swag. It was a great day. But out of everybody that said, "Oh man, I watched this video. Oh man, I started watching you on this video," everything that they learned, it was always something different. There were no repeats out of the whole day, out of all these people. And I'm going, wow, just, man, nobody said the same thing at all. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
The stuff we're doing works.
It does.
It's pretty neat. So if you could go back to little Randy, that was his name at the time. If you could go back to little Randy, the day Randy first walked out of the house to go to work in the trade shop, let's say in the union, either way, union or the machine shop, either one or both. You walk out of the house, got your boots on, your jeans on, your shirt, got your lunch packed, whatever it is you got, you're walking out. If you could go back and talk to you that day, what would you tell yourself based on what you know now?
So going back, I'd probably have to tell myself, take all the knowledge in and pass it on to others. Through all your apprentices, through people you work with, anywhere. I even passed knowledge on to people in the office that I worked around, still from my trade and craft. Learn all the knowledge you can and pass it along.
I love that. And now you're doing it on a bigger scale.
Much bigger scale.
It's really funny you talked about the office. I remember being in one of the offices I worked at one day, and they were complaining about the guys in the field. They can't get their timesheets right. They can't get this right. They can't do this right. They can't do this right. They're always calling in asking to redo their password, whatever it is. And they're just complaining. And I just happened to be there, and I heard enough, and I walked in, and it was two of the office ladies. And I walked in, and I said, look, I don't want this to sound wrong, but y'all know we get paid for what they do in the field, not what y'all do. Y'all are what the president calls non-productive overhead. You do not do a thing to make this company money. We get paid for what they do in the field, and you and me are the support system. I'm not working in the field. I'm not installing the pipe anymore. We don't get paid for what I do. We just help make sure they have everything they need to do it right. Y'all understand that, right? Look like they got hit by a truck.
Yeah.
They're just looking at me like, and it's like, ladies, I'm sorry, but our job is to support them.
In any way possible.
You bet. Because if they have every tool they need, we can make more money. We make their jobs easier. They're happier. They make more money. It looks good on all of us.
Yep.
Man, this has been fantastic. I thoroughly, look, I love what I get to do, but to get to talk to you is really cool because I've watched it all the way through. Very proud of you. Everything from where you've started to what you've done. Mistakes along the way, learn from them, changed, improved, and grown. And you have just, not number one, you're a great pipe fitter, a great tradesman, a great communicator, a great educator, but you're also a fantastic father. And that's really cool.
Yep.
So thank you very much. This has been wonderful.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.